Travis on the mic, talking life and what's alike. Middle age, it's quite the ride, finding joy and chasing pride. Career dreams and daily grind, funny moments that we find. Letting go of yesterday, making paths along the way. Middle age.
Hey everybody, hi Tim. How are you?
Hello, Trav. Yep, we did it.
We did it. Welcome
Can
to
I
the Tim and Trav
timestamp
podcast.
this moment?
Timestamp it.
Saturday morning,
Okay.
but this will air on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I don't want to think about it. I'm kinda stressed.
Those of you listening on Tuesday morning, get ready for a roller coaster of chaos, right?
That's right.
I mean, gosh, hopefully things remain peaceful, but this is a crazy election season.
It really is. For those of you not in the U.S., he's talking about the U.S. election. Our election day is on Tuesday, and it's a heated one if you haven't been paying attention. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I'm more than a little nervous. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
As a reminder for those who've been here before and an intro for the first-time listeners, welcome. The Tim and Trav podcast is basically about life in our 40s and transitions and everything in between. You found us during season 1, and we're getting going, man. We've got a good guest today. This is
yes.
good.
How many episodes have we done?
This will be number 10.
That's fantastic, because I think originally at one point we thought we'd only just get through the first.
Well, originally at one point I thought you'd never return my phone call. So, yeah, I mean...
It's amazing.
We're doing a lot better than we thought.
Yeah, you and I have really grown through this process. All right, let's dive in because we got a lot of stuff to cover and we have an awesome guest, as you shared.
Yeah.
Any hair care tips on your end?
So you're not going to believe this, but I actually do.
Wow.
So I have, as you know, I have a beautiful 6-year-old daughter, and I don't normally get tasked with the hair stuff. Like, it's usually a mom and daughter type thing, only because I think Jules senses my incompetence.
Yeah.
But I actually have a product review after having compared a few things. So
Really? Wow.
Yeah, like this is actually product testing. So I have used a couple different things to try and detangle her hair after bath and before.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I actually really like combing her hair, brushing her hair, because it's a good time that like you're not distracted by anything else. It's like,
Right.
This is just one-on-one time. It's great.
Yeah, it's cool.
Anyway, I've tried a few different products for this detangler stuff, and actually our OG listener, Nancy, shout out to Nancy, she found the best detangler we've used yet, and everything else can go in the trash. The only issue that I have with it is the name, which I hesitate to say,
Okay.
but the brand is Sexy Hair Detangler, and I am telling you, I don't know what's in it, I don't know what it does, but it works better than everything else we've tried. No lie, no polls, no nothing. Seriously.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I have to comb Quinn's hair, when she gets out of the shower. I help her from time to time, and it is tricky. And clearly at times, like, she's in pain because of some of the tangles.
Yeah.
So that's wow. Well, what a great endorsement for that product.
There you go, man.
And
I might beat your Dyson. I might get us a
if you
sexy hair
detangler, if you get a sponsorship first, I will be so angry. Oh, that's great, Trav. Well, thank you for that endorsement. I got nothing, so let's keep moving. Do we have any listener comments?
I actually do. It comes from Colin here in Bay Village, and he said he texted me kind of out of the blue. Didn't even know he was listening, to be honest with you, which is a little bit terrifying that people I know in my real life are actually listening. But we're up to 15 now, I think.
Wow.
Colin said, I've been dying to throw a polar bear plunge party. Is 2025 the year? Are you in? And then he followed up with, have you been to the Schwitz? So there's a multi-layer thing here that we can talk about. First of all, he's obviously addressing, for those who aren't familiar, he's talking about the polar bear party that you talked about in 109 with Ryan Kelly. I responded and told him I will not be doing a polar bear plunge. That sounds awful. But and then the Schwitz, for those in the Cleveland area, you're just going to have to Google that one on your own. It's like a men's club that has been around forever.
Okay.
And I believe it's a Turkish bath, I want to say.
Yeah.
I could be really wrong about that. I probably shouldn't even talk about it if I don't know anything about it. But it basically, from what I hear, you go and it's like a sweat type lodge type place, and then you eat steak.
Wow. That's really interesting. I was at a Turkish bath in Istanbul many, many years ago. It was a very unique experience.
Did you like it?
It was very unique. It was there's nothing wrong. It was just like a really interesting experience. So, because we don't have anything like that here, but it appears that maybe Cleveland does.
Yeah, no, and it's been around a long time. Like, it was literally one of the first things people asked me about when we moved here.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
Like, yeah.
Wow. I got one comment, if I could share it with you, and I was
please.
really happy about this. Somebody, a friend of mine was listening. He texted me this comment. So, and he had mentioned that there was a segment from our previous episode where you and I were I think, kind of unfortunately laughing at largely my memory issues with the hotel room and the photo, the door. Yeah. And he said, I'm crying while laughing to this, which, I paused for a minute, Trav, because I was like, that's fantastic, right? Like if that story, and I mean, clearly, like, I need to work on the whole memory situation, make sure that I don't find myself in those situations anymore. But look, if you and I can elicit that sort of response from some listeners, and, we talked about this from the get-go, that part of this is just really about kind of trying to highlight the humor in life and celebrate that to the extent that we're able, because there's a lot of, kind of dire and darkness out there that tends to kind of cloud all of the airwaves. So I was really happy to hear that somebody had a really positive response to the story and to, this podcast as a whole. So I was grateful to share that. And I celebrate that with you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I don't know who wrote it, but,
They just found your number. Like,
they somehow got my cell.
No, you just can't remember who wrote it.
Yeah, exactly.
Screenshot it.
That's the issue. Oh my Lord. All right, man. Awesome wife moment. What do you got?
I have, it's an embarrassment of riches here at the household with Kristen, but, and I don't say that sarcastically. The awesome wife moment that I thought of is, you had kind of mentioned a little bit about Christy always remembering things. Kristen is good at that, but she's also does this thing where she's like, hey, I did a play date schedule. It's in the family calendar. And I have to tell you, every time she does it, it's like, oh, right. Play dates are never on my radar. Play dates are like, our kids are so lucky. We kind of live in this Mayberry-esque area where, like, we live pretty close to a lot of friends. So, it's similar to how you and I grew up. It's like, well, you just run down the alley and go find Tim.
Sure.
But she is really good at fostering those things, especially for our little one who still kind of needs like guided, arrangements like that, because she's too small to just go wander. So the play date thing always eludes me. She's excellent at it. She always has it set up, and then she's just like, oh, by the way, so-and-so's coming over, or we need to take Jewel over to wherever. It's like, oh, right. You are actually fostering relationships for our child. Thank you. I do not do that.
Well, I want to pause on that real quickly, because I trust that prior to you jumping on this pod with me, she's alerting you that she's arranged this play date for you.
This was all a ruse.
Yeah, gotcha. That's cool, man. I have a lot of respect for that, and I like the way that you're looking at that.
How about you, bud?
I'm going to piggyback off something you said last week, because it really resonated with me, and it really set in after you said it. And you watch, and we talked about it or alluded to it earlier when we started this podcast, but you watch a baseball game, you watch a football game, and the commercials that are coming on right now are really, really intense. And you had shared about how Kristen does an amazing job of kind of receiving that information, then helping to kind of re-communicate it to your children. And 100% that happened here and continues to happen here, since all of this campaign stuff started. It's just really wild, right? I mean, these things will pop up and the kids will say, is someone coming to get me? What do you mean they're killing these people? And that's a very complicated and delicate conversation. And I just want to give Christy a lot of credit for the way that she, approaches that and does it with the right amount of, truth and authenticity. But then also, just dealing with the realities of that and
Right.
how do you accept that? So huge shout out to her for that. It's a very delicate and complicated place to be, but she did an amazing job with it.
That's
and
awesome.
continues to. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Digesting the world for our kids is always delicate.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Something awesome you've seen, read, experienced.
I'm gonna just do a quick thing here. So Halloween, I don't know if you knew this or not. Halloween is not my favorite holiday. I've just never really been into it. But a lot of people are, and I respect them for that. There are houses, and this probably happens in your community as well, that go all in on Halloween, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was one that we went to on Thursday night. That literally every inch of this guy's yard was covered. I mean, people drive from all over the place just to walk through. It's almost like a winter wonderland of Halloween chaos. I had been driving by it for weeks leading up. I mean, this guy had been, this is not like you set this up in a day. This is like weeks of setup and preparation and extension cords running everywhere. I mean, the noises, the colors. Not something I would do, right? Well, the first thing I think of when I see that is, where does the guy store all of this stuff?
Right.
I mean, like, this is insane. And these are 20-foot statues. I mean, this is not just like little figurines, every inch covered. I walked through that property the other night with my kids and hundreds of other people that passed through there. The joy that was experienced by these people was amazing, right? And I got to give this guy, there's one side of me that thinks, man, this is insane. Like, this is just really, really crazy. But if I pause for a moment and really reflect on it, like, this guy is bringing joy to so many people through his efforts, and he's happy too, right? Like, he was distributing candy out front and had a great day. And it's one night of the year. That's what's so fascinating. It's like, he does all this for one big night of the year.
Right.
I just got to give those people shout outs. I used to criticize them, but my opinion on it shifted, and I just have a lot of respect for what he did for the community.
Dude, that's awesome. Actually, there's a couple places here in town that remind me of that same thing. And I always think the same thing about storage. Like, where do you keep all this stuff? Can I piggyback while we're piggybacking?
Yeah, man, piggy away.
So I actually made a note. It's my version of taking a photo of your hotel door. But I made a note for today that my awesome thing was actually Halloween night in general. And
no, really?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not a big Halloween guy. I don't dress up. I haven't dressed up since college. I don't judge other people who do. It's just kind of not my thing. Like, I don't get as into it as everybody else. But I took a step back as I was walking around with the kids and stuff. And I have to tell you, as a concept, like, Halloween night, the entire neighborhood opens up their doors. They give something away without expecting anything in return. And it's literally all for the joy of the kids. And, like, I don't want to be too lofty and esoteric about it because it's Halloween and it's just supposed to be fun. But, like, how cool is that? Like, there are very few things left in our daily lives where that's what happens. It's literally everyone opens their doors. They don't expect a single thing in return. They give everything away, and it's all just for a good time and for some community. And, like, I didn't want to lose sight of that.
I think that's I like the way that you frame that. That actually helped me a little bit. I really do appreciate that. That's the first time you've ever helped me.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah. This is a pivotal moment.
You know what? I'm glad we documented it.
Yeah, me too. All right, sponsors.
I got nothing, man.
No, that's not true.
It's true.
You know what? I'm going on vacation next week. I'm going to send an email to Dyson. Right, I'm going to ask them, what do we need to do to get your sponsorship?
I like it. You know what? You know what, though? I am going to take this moment because I'm going to do a little experiment. And this is coming from a previous commenter, Jeff, who had a great suggestion of inserting a quote or something inspirational. And we're going to kind of step it up one notch.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, while we have sponsors or don't have sponsors, or maybe even after we do get sponsors, if we get to that point, I'm going to make a little segment in here, but we're going to step it up a notch and not necessarily do like a famous person's quote.
Yeah.
But we're going to do a quote from a previous listener as a segment, as a sponsorship segment.
A previous guest, I think, right?
Yeah, sorry, a previous guest. Jeff, thank you for that suggestion. We're going to take it to heart and we're going to give it a go this time. So here's that first run at it.
Alyssa, when you look back, what words of wisdom would you offer to your teenage self?
Just go for it.
All right, Tim, I got to tell you, this was, I was super excited to have our guest, Dr. Kate. I was excited to have her on. Not only have I not spoken to her in a long time, too long, but I know that she is just an incredibly impactful and wonderful person coming from the Cummings stock, both as a family and as an individual. But I got to tell you, Tim, she kind of got me. It's a really heartfelt, really good interview, and she made some amazing points, and I'm excited for everybody to hear it. So here's our interview with Kate.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, the time has come. We are here with Dr. Kate. It's okay if we refer to you as Dr. Kate?
Only you.
Fair enough. So Dr. Kate is an anesthesiologist in the field of veterinary medicine. This is our first doctor, I think, Trav.
That's the biggest word I've ever heard you say, Tim.
Thank you. It turns out that Kate is also my younger sister, just for full transparency. But we're going to dive in here because she has a lot of interesting things to tell us. Kate, please start by sharing a little bit about what you currently are doing.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. This is bringing back many good and bad memories of my childhood, seeing the two of you side by side. But yeah, as Tim said, I am currently a veterinary anesthesiologist at a specialty referral hospital in the Metro Detroit area. Been here for about a year, and that's kind of where I'm at now.
And how long have you been in the veterinary space?
Yeah, so I started vet school in 2007 and finished in 2011. Did a 1-year internship followed by a 3-year residency in anesthesia, and finished that then in 2015. So I have been practicing as a veterinary anesthesiologist since 2015. And the bulk of that time was in the Boston area.
Gotcha. Right on.
Yeah.
And Dr. Kate, I mean, when you say animals, give us a sense of the animals that you've worked with in your career.
Yeah, so I think not everyone knows that veterinary medicine as a profession is becoming much more specialized, and I hope the two of you as dog owners won't be needing specialist care, but it is becoming a much more prominent thing to see a surgeon, see an ophthalmologist, all of those things. And a big part of that, especially if you're dealing with different animals needing different procedures, is that they often need to be sedated or go under general anesthesia for a lot of these things to take place. So most specialists work with, one variety of animals. So small animals, primarily dogs and cats. There's zoo companion animals. So that would be like small exotics, those pocket pets that a lot of families have, zoo animals. And then of course there's all the big horses, cows, food animals out there. And a unique attribute of anesthesia is that we have to kind of know what to do when any animal is put in our path. So I've done anything from cows to lions to bears, sea otter. I'm trying to think what some of the other more unique, a reindeer right before Christmas. I think the big cats and the primates. I did a gorilla once, and that was probably the scariest, because if that wakes up, you're done. Yeah. I think the length of its forearm was the length of my body. So, and it's a really cool specialty to be a part of, and it's part of the thing that drew me to that specialty is that I liked that you got to dabble a little bit in everything in terms of the different animals out there. But my day-to-day now, I've settled down a bit, and it's 99% dogs and cats.
Gotcha. Hey, Tim, can you promise me never to say the phrase pocket pet? Because I saw your face light up, and just don't. Just please don't. I'm begging you.
Listen, you know I'm having a tough time with this conversation.
You're right. I'm just having
Okay, so please don't. No, we don't need any extra jabs right now. I mean,
Okay,
I much of the angst that I experience is directly because of Kate and her. You know, listen. Can I just share a quick story, Kate? My favorite dog has had a little bit of some stomach issues recently, so I had to take a sample to her vet yesterday.
A stool sample, to clarify.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And so I did that. I wasn't really happy about doing it, but I needed to. I wanted to make sure she was okay. And I figured I would walk in there and hand them the sample and leave. And I handed them the sample, and they said, "Oh, okay, $91." That's a lot of money.
I have a question though. Did you expect to just drop that off and like have them do it for free? Like
I did actually. Yeah, I did. I thought it was going to be free.
Why would you think that's free?
Well, it didn't. They never said when I was talking to him on the phone that it would cost money. We'll come back to the story later. But anyways, Kate. So that's wild. I mean, that's like some of those large animals. Were you scared when you were doing some of that stuff?
Not often, but I was also probably 10 years younger when I was doing that, and I was just so excited to be there. I mean, I think in every opportunity I had when I was presented with something that was unique or exotic to me, it was like a kid in a candy store. Like that was a pinch me moment for me. And full disclaimer, many of these animals would have been quite heavily sedated by a handler prior to me getting there. But I had one moment during my residency where we were actually transporting a lion from the zoo to the teaching hospital where I did my residency. Shout out to Tufts. Woohoo. And I remember my mentor at the time, if she listens to this, Lois, she said to myself and the vet tech that was with me, she said, "You guys ride in the back of the van with the lion." And, in my head, I'm like, okay, sure. And I was thinking this lion was going to be crated, anything. And it wasn't. I was just sitting side by side with this lion for a 30-minute car ride. Nothing about this in retrospect was probably planned out all that well. And the whole ride, I was so giddy, but I was also like, if this thing wakes up, what is my exit strategy?
I don't walk me through that though. Hang on. So your mentor's like, okay, you guys get in the back. So you and the vet.
To be fair, she drove us there. And I don't think she knew what the circumstance was. The zoo staff said, "Would you like to come along with us for this ride?" And, myself and this tech that was there with me from the university, we said, sure, absolutely, thinking potentially this might be a well planned out, safe option. And it absolutely was not.
So
with that, go ahead.
Well, I don't understand though. Like, did you get back in? Like, I'm picturing like an ambulance. Like, it was like a utility van, and she was so heavily sedated that she was just recumbent beside us, and we were monitoring heart rate, respiratory rate. But I don't even know if we. I know, both. Ours were probably off the charts. I don't even know if we had placed an IV catheter, because usually once you have an IV catheter, you can then administer more drugs to keep them asleep. But I can't recall if we had actually done that. I hope we did before we moved her. Everyone was fine. No limbs were lost, but that was one of the more memorable experiences of my residency. I don't know if anybody can top that story. Like, ever. Period. Podcast.
That close.
Incredible.
I don't think I could live one day in Kate's shoes.
I've said that since you were like 6, though.
Yeah, I know it's always been that way. It's unbelievable, Kate. That's why. Kate, what are some of the more challenging components of your job?
Yeah, so I think veterinary medicine as a whole, to the point that you just comment on, I don't get faced with as much because I am now working much more with the different doctors and the technicians, and I don't have as much face to face as a general practitioner or an ER vet or one of these specialists that have that client patient vet relationship. And one struggle or obstacle that has long faced the veterinary world is obviously the cost of care. Pet insurance, while it's becoming more common, is not something that everybody has for their pet. So the cost of medical care, like a stool sample fecal test for your pet, can be really expensive. But what I don't think people see is the cost of education that it took for a vet to get to that point, how much vets do that takes away ultimately from their production at the end of the day because they want to help preserve the health and safety of a pet and keep it with its owner. I think many vets, by attribute of becoming vets, have this outrageous compassion for animals, and there's a lot of sad things that happen in veterinary medicine, and I think within the medical profession, just within the past decade, veterinarians have surpassed human medical doctors, dentists in terms of suicide rates, because it is such a challenging job from a mental health perspective, because you do get a ton of pushback from clients who are saying you're in this just for the money. The hours are super long. A lot of vets finish veterinary school, best case scenario, 6 figures plus in debt. And, it's all of those things that I'm out far enough that I'm not dealing with, and I'm in a specialty that I don't get faced with all of those challenges on a day-to-day basis. But for anyone listening, if you ever do get frustrated with your vet or the cost of veterinary care, I would just encourage you to take a step back and know that most of these individuals became vets 100% not for the money, and they are trying to work side by side with you too to provide the best care to, keep that integrity of your relationship with your pet as sustained as possible.
I think that's a great point. What if the integrity, what if that relationship piece doesn't exist?
You're the strangest pet owner I have ever encountered.
Oh, wait a minute. All right. Kate, I interrupted you, Trav, but I think, Kate, you actually just made you provided some very valuable insight that I have not thought of. So thank you.
Yeah. Sure.
Wow, man. This whole podcast was set up as a transformation of Tim's life, by the way. It was a long con. I didn't know if it would work, but we're here. So you mentioned a couple of things in there that I find really interesting. Not only the education piece, which obviously is just massive, but you mentioned the long hours. I don't think people necessarily think of that when they think of veterinary sciences. And as an anesthesiologist, is your job, I know that I've had a couple of friends, unfortunately, who've had to take their dogs in for more ambulatory overnight crazy hour type stuff. Are you subjected to that as well, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, for much of my education, I was. Now I would say that I've made it to a point that most nights when I leave the hospital, granted it could be quite late some nights, I can usually walk away and know that it will be a quiet night. There's probably 10 to 15 times a year that I will get called in to assist with a more complicated case, or the vet tech who's getting called in overnight will reach out to me for support on a case that I can just kind of field that from afar. But my work-life balance has improved. It is the ER vets, and a big shout out to the vet techs, which would be the equivalent of the human nurse, that are really, I would say, the workhorses within the veterinary field. And I think part of what I love about what I do now is that I advocate for the animals, because that's kind of the sole purpose of what I do as an anesthesiologist. I don't really have any other skin in the game other than to advocate for the patient and their well-being while they're under my care. And then the vet techs that I work with, all I want to do is make their day-to-day job a little bit more rewarding. And if that's education, teaching them a new skill, encouraging them, and just recognizing them a bit more, I do think that they are probably the most underappreciated and underpaid member of the veterinary community. And if you interact with them in your dealings with whatever veterinary practice you're affiliated with, they definitely deserve more recognition than they're given.
And you also mentioned too, your work-life balance. Like, how do you, Tim, stop smirking.
I'm having a tough time with this whole thing, this whole conversation, but I'm doing the best I can.
All right. Sounds good. That'll be an outtake. How do you, that's such a stressful environment in general, right? Like in terms of, obviously when it's just you and the patient and, your team, it's probably different than if you have to interact with the pet owner and that kind of thing. But
yeah,
given all the different stresses and all the different, kind of points of stress, how do you personally balance your kind of mental health, like your work-life balance, not only in the hours, but then also like, how do you go home and just say, all right, well, even if it is a late night, I can detach. Like, how do you do that personally?
I don't know that I actually do that that well right now. I think to some degree, I have tried to start doing that, and much of that kind of relies in me training the people that are doing these procedures and knowing that they're well taught. And when I step away, whatever ensues while I'm away will still be of the quality that I would hope they would do if I was present or not. And I will say, since having kids, it's just become a much bigger priority that when I leave, I can disconnect that aspect of my life and just be there for my kids. It's funny, my daughter, if I'm late to picking her up, she's so sweet now, but she knows that on occasion I will be later picking her up, and she'll be one of the last kids at school, and she'll say, why are you so late today? And I'll say there's emergency. And it's evolved to her, jumping in the car on the days that I get to school a little late, and she'll immediately go, Mom, what was the emergency today? And it makes me feel like I'm hopefully setting an example for her that working hard and being there for other people will help her to show up in the long run. And she's not looking at me as a bad mom every time that happens. But my kids have been a huge catalyst in kind of allowing me to cut the cord at the end of the day and turn off work mode and turn on mom mode. Mm-hmm. And some days that doesn't happen because it's been a really challenging day with a lot of sad cases. And I'll come home and I'll say to my husband, who is always supportive on those days, that like, I need time to myself because I am not ready to turn on mom mode and not turn off work mode on those harder days. So I guess in a nutshell, and this is a rambling answer, but family and kids, that's been, I guess, the change.
Yeah. I think it can't be understated how much perspective kids can provide just in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or adults who act like kids.
Well, that's why we have you in our life.
Ditto.
Wow, Kate, that's a great answer. And I love what you shared about, I know, and Trav now knows that, just the extent to which you put your heart into your work. Where do you think that came from? I mean, obviously from me, but
I was just my knee-jerk reaction was gonna be not to say you.
No, truthfully, where do you think that drive came from? And I think it's a really important, and especially in today's world, I think it's an incredibly important characteristic that you're instilling in your children just by example.
Yeah.
So where'd that come from?
The drive to get to where I am today.
Sure. And to continue, though. I mean, you're there, but you continue to give it everything that you've got, and
yeah.
So what fuels that?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, I am fortunate that I have been afforded the opportunity to, really become what I always wanted to be. I didn't know I was going to be a veterinary anesthesiologist, but I'm sure, Tim, like from the time that I knew what a veterinarian was, I wanted to be a veterinarian. And I know that sounds so cliche, and I've served on admissions committees in the Boston area. And I will say, if you say that trying to go to vet school today, like you need a lot more than that to get into vet school. But from the moment I knew what an animal was, I gravitated to animals so much more than I did humans. And I found as an introverted kid, and it could be that I came after two very kind of outspoken, outgoing older brothers. Animals were kind of my way at bridging the gap in terms of finding a way to communicate with people. And I remember in every aspect of my life, animals just being the driving force. I wanted to be around them all the time. I remember coming home from college and, mom and dad would always comment, like I was a little bit excited to see them and I was over the moon to see our dogs. Like I would be on the ground oohing and eyeing over them. And every moment I was home, I just wanted to be near them. And I know it sounds strange to find so much purpose in these creatures, but it's really been what's provided me the most comfort in life. So for me to get to work with animals every day is just a dream come true. I think they've showed me, and I'm even getting emotional talking about it because they've showed me the best of humanity and the worst of humanity. And I have seen someone change their mortgage, change their retirement plan to pay for the cost of their pet's care, and to be some part of that or to offer some comfort at an animal's end of life. It's a huge gift. And I feel so fortunate to be able to offer that. And yeah, it's great. And animals do goofy things. So a lot of days are just really funny. And on a lighter note, I get to give animals a lot of drugs and see them do really funny things. So yeah, it's a full circle moment for me to get to take what was my childhood dream and love and get to do that as an adult. Sorry about that.
What are you sorry for? You kidding me?
That was a beautiful answer. And I mean, I just have such, Kate's heart is so big, right? It's like, it extends so far beyond, and it's such a gift. And I think I have such admiration for your passion for your work. And you're right. I mean, you've been this way from day one. Like you've never changed your desire to help care, and specifically for animals. But I love how it extends beyond that sphere into the human world as well. And I think at the end of the day, God stripped all of those feelings from me and gave them all to you.
It really, actually, seeing you two side by side is kind of amazing.
It is, yeah. Yin and yang.
Now it's making sense.
Yeah, right? Seriously.
Trav, do you have any more questions, or should we hit her with the impact question?
I really would like to, because I have so many questions I want to ask, but I think this one might actually encompass quite a bit just by asking it. Can you name one experience or a person that's had a profound impact on the person you are today?
Yeah, so I thought about this, and I will commend your guests that you've had so far, because I think this is a really challenging, really good but challenging question. So if I can answer it, can I pick two different people from so the first would be academic, and this may even be someone that you guys recognize, but I thought about this, and it dates back to Toth Elementary School, Perrysburg, Ohio, 6th grade, with Sue Bowles as my teacher. And I vividly remember her for so many reasons. One was that I was good friends with her son, but she loved science. And I remember that being such a unique thing at the time, to see a woman that loved science. And this predated STEM anything. And I remember in 6th grade for our school photos, she said to us, she tasked us, she said, pick one thing to bring into your school picture this year. I don't know if it was, it was our final year in elementary school. And, people were showing up with basketballs, soccer balls, wearing something of a superhero that they liked. And I'm sure mom and dad still have this photo, but I picked to take my picture with our class pet rat on my shoulder. And from the science aspect, I so appreciated her kind of showing that is something that a girl can love and be passionate about at a time when it wasn't something that girls were encouraged to love and be passionate about. But I also love that she didn't stifle anyone's curiosity or interest, short of it being something offensive. She said, take a picture with whatever you want. And I remember thinking, that is so cool. No one has ever told me to, kind of not go with what the norm is and just do something that we're so excited about. So she, from an academic perspective, I have learned from so many people, and the list is numerous, but she was such an impact maker for me. In terms of those.
Another teacher shout out, Trav. They just keep coming.
Yeah.
It's like
Teacher
really,
shout out.
really impressive and inspiring.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Bowles, I mean, rest her soul, she was just incredible. Just an absolutely incredible human being. And a
teacher, yes.
Wonderful educator, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So who's your other one?
Well, my other's 2. And I think in terms of not ever stifling my dreams and aspirations, I have to shout out my parents, because they always showed up for me and always encouraged me. And, they were such busy people. I'm getting so emotional. Can you edit out tears?
I don't want to, Kate.
Please.
Come on, this is amazing.
I know. But I think to their credit, they had 4 kids and they were busy and they tried to show up for us individually, as a group, always. But I so remember them every night we had family dinner. And that was such a big thing. And their unwavering support and ability to show up despite the chaos, which must have been their lives, I truly, truly admire, and I probably don't tell them enough. But also that they allowed me to be this kind of weird, quirky kid and never tried to change me or dissuade me from going down the path that I chose to go down. They were always there for me in the big moments and the small. And I truthfully, I think if any of us chose to do anything, whether they supported it or not, if we were happy, they're going to be happy and they're going to boast about us. And if I can be a fraction of that for my kids, so they know that whatever they choose to be, I will be there for them 110%. I hope that I can give that to them.
Yeah, for sure. I can't speak nicely enough about your parents. They honestly, I actually kind of consider them non-blood relatives in so many ways, and I learned so much from them too. So I totally get you. You kind of made me almost tear up a little bit, because it's like when you talk about the Cummings impact on the world, but also just on individual people, I feel that very deeply. So I hear you 100%.
I'd say right back at you and your family too.
Good people. We're very lucky.
Yeah.
This is a love fest going on. I mean,
yeah, break that up, Tim. Come on.
I can't. I have cried. Kate, I've cried twice on this episode, and that's the first time I've cried on a Tim and Trav podcast.
Same here.
Cried or allergies?
I kept backing up from the camera, so maybe nobody could see my face. But I mean, there's so much to what you said that is just so spot on. I'm not going to speak to it from a personal perspective, but just what it means to grow up in a supportive household where people, care about you and let you be who you are. And it saddens me how many people don't get that experience, which is, very tragic for so many. So I'm just really, I'm really in awe of everything you've done with your life and the person that you are. And that, I would say that if you weren't my sister, but it really is remarkable.
Thank you. And I don't have a shout out per se, like a lot of your people have these awesome organizations that you can check out. I don't have that, but I will say a plug from an animal standpoint is that if you're ever looking for a place to give or a place to volunteer, or you want to take your kids somewhere, reaching out to local animal shelters, and especially looking at animal shelters impacted by all of these terrible hurricanes. So in the Carolinas and Florida, if you have any money to donate to these humane societies or get involved in some way, that's just my little plug for places to reach out to.
That's great to get that kind of endorsement from a professional, Seriously, because from the outside looking in, it's like, man, I don't even know where to start. So that's great.
I know. Yeah. But there's a lot of people doing a lot of great works to help keep pets with their families, but also being completely saturated because of what these huge storms have done to their areas.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Well, I'd say that's a great way to wrap things up.
Kate,
Spay or neuter your pets.
There you go. Hey,
Bob Barker.
Bob Barker. He was right.
Yes.
Well, Kate, thank you so much for your time and for your insights.
Thanks for having me.
And for your outpouring of love. That's I can only imagine we all feel that way. Feel your heart coming through. So thank you very much for that.
Hey, you're welcome.
And maybe we'll have you back so you can tell us more dirt on Tim, because that's always fun too.
Deal.
No more
You could get a lot of people on here for that.
I've given you all the dirt. Kate, thank you so much.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
All
right, man.
Tim,
intense and beautiful. Just wonderful.
It's beautiful and authentic.
Yes, which is what we come to expect from the Cummings clan,
From 5 of the 6 of them.
And how did you feel about interviewing your sister?
I have always been inspired and impressed by everything that she's done. So I did not know about the lion story. I thought that was insane and hilarious.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Putting myself in those shoes, I'm like,
I think I need about a week to really reflect on, the difference between Kate and myself with regard to our,
intelligence.
I don't need any time to reflect on that, man. She's got me hands down on that. I was going to say our love for animals, but you know what? She truly does just care. She has such a big heart, and I love the way that she sort of helped us better understand the world of veterinary medicine, the people that work in that field, and it's given me a lot to consider in terms of my role how I interact in that space. So I love that interview. That was awesome.
So, shoehorning into Tim's dog therapy moment. Now do you need more time to digest?
I may, yeah. I mean, I think I need to think about it a little bit more because she brought some great points up, and she's definitely made me think about all of it.
Do you have the test results back from the drop off?
I'm glad you brought that up. It turns out that she's fine.
Oh, good.
Yeah, which I was really happy about. And Kate even made me think about that $91 that I was pretty frustrated over.
I just love that you thought it was going to be free. Here's a bag of dog shit.
Look, to give someone a bag of feces and then also give them $91 is a little painful. Do you agree with me? I mean, it's a little painful.
Look, I consider myself fairly frugal. I don't like spending much on anything.
Right.
But, I hear you. But I also I have to laugh at you because you thought it was going to be free. Or at least cheaper than that. No, anytime it's kids or dogs or animals or pets, I never expect to save money.
I hear you.
But yeah, I'm glad she's okay. That's the thrust of it. That's the whole point.
Thanks, Trav. It means a lot. Well, listen, this has been an awesome episode, man. I've loved every moment of it, and looking forward to a couple more in this first season, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think we've got a few more in the pipeline, and then that'll be season 1. How about that?
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, everybody. Happy voting day. Get out there.
Happy voting day. Get out there and do it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Tim and Travis on the mic, talking life and what's alike. Middle age, it's quite the ride. Finding joy and chasing pride. Career dreams and daily grind. Funny moments that we find. Letting go of yesterday, making paths along the way. Middle age. Middle-aged mayhem breaking free, finding out who we can be, laughing, learning all the time. Tim and Travis in their prime. Every step a brand new plan, older, wiser, still we stand, navigating through the years, sharing stories, laughs and cheers. Middle-aged mayhem breaking free, finding out who we can be, laughing, learning all the time. Tim and Travis in their prime. Every step a brand new plan, older, wiser, still we stand, navigating through the years, sharing stories, laughs and cheers. Middle age, enjoying the fun, middle age has just begun. Tim and Travis lead the way, every episode will slay.
I'm trying to tighten myself up a little bit here too. Kate's conversation was good.
Dude.
We'll be fine.
Damn it. I mean, you kind of threw that together, but here's a Kit Kat.
I'm not saying anything. Great. That was great.
Whew, she got me.